Good morning and welcome to United Methodist Church of the Atonement. My name is Nicole College and I have a couple of announcements. Rebecca Circle is starting up a group called Lone Stars. This is a group for single people, widowed, separated, never married, divorced, where it's a chance for you all to come out and share a social evening with other Christian folks. It could be a pizza night, a movie night, whatever the group would like to do. The first meeting is next Saturday at 6:30 for a dinner. Food and drink will be provided by the Rebecca Circle, but if you would like to bring something, you are more than welcomed. Sign up in the Welcome Center and please bring a friend. Hope Church is sponsoring an Easter egg hunt on March 31st at Knollwood Community Center at 3 o'clock. It is for ages 2 to 10 years old. Hope is also taking donations, and they can be placed in the donation box in the hallway outside of the nursery. Please join me in prayer. We gather as God's people to delight in God's presence, to experience God's healing, and to receive God's grace. Let us be reconciled and renewed as we worship our God through Christ in the Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
It is time to now give joyfully to the Lord. Giver of all gifts, you open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. You are just in all your ways and kind in all your doings. Teach us to give freely as you have given. Teach us to live thankfully in ministry to others, and bless the givers with joy and the receivers with gratitude, so that your name may be blessed. Amen. First, I'd like to say thank you so much to our friend here at Atonement, Reverend Jack Shatana, who is the Executive Director of the beautiful Atonement Camp and Retreat Ministries. He's going to give the message for us today, and we welcome him.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's good to be with you. So I don't know how many years in a row now I've been coming, but I feel really honored to be here because from what I've heard, Pastor John doesn't let just anybody in his pulpit. So I feel like that's as much as I respect him, that's an honor that I would be invited to be with you. And it's nice to see your face year after year and to get to know some of you a little more closely. But if you've been here before, you also know that part of why I come is so I can make a shameless plug for Camp Atonement, because that's what I do. I'm in my 19th year, actually, in ministry there. So like anything else, it just goes quickly, but it really has been a blessing and a privilege to serve there. And if you don't know about Camp Atonement, we run 8 weeks of overnight camp during the summer. Our sessions start Sunday afternoon, and they end on Friday afternoon. And so it's a 1-week session. And what we always say is when a kid comes for the first time, on Sunday afternoon, she or he doesn't want to stay. Like, they're kind of nervous because it's a new thing, you know? You're being away from home and you're in a different place. And believe it or not, they don't bring their cell phone. So they leave their cell phone at home. We ask them to unplug from the world so that during that week they can plug in to the experience of being in creation with God and being in connection with friends that they make for a lifetime. On Friday, they don't want to leave. And the reason they don't want to leave is not just because they've had so much fun, but because they also make friends and they connect to Jesus in a way that they don't in any other way. So one example I have of friendship is, this was probably 15 years ago now, I was visiting a church down in Berlin, Maryland. And when I got to the church, the woman who invited me said, I was just on the phone yesterday with a friend I made at Camp Atonement from Wilmington 50 years ago. In 1 week. A friendship of 50 years. The other part of that is that the joy that they experience, the fun that they experience, they connect to faith. Because it's not just that we're having fun and sailing and canoeing and doing archery and swimming and all those things, but we're singing goofy songs, we're singing great worship songs, we're having vespers on the water, we're having worship services. So in everything they do, faith becomes joy. And that's a gift. So I know that you encourage your children to come to Camp Atonement. And I want to encourage you to keep doing that. In fact, Pastor John said to me this year, he and Pastor Amy wanted to come 2 different weeks, so that if one of your children wanted to come to camp when one of the pastors was there, they had 2 options. So, you know, these are the kinds of things that clergy who see what happens there know. They want their kids to come to camp. They want your kids to come to camp, and so they'll do whatever it takes. But here's my shameless plug. Last year, we awarded over $106,000 in campership help. $106,000, yeah. To 310 kids. Out of our 850 kids, 310 receive financial aid. So, you know, more than 30%, about a third, need financial aid to be able to come to camp. And of those 310 kids, over half came on a Spain grant, which means they come from a family in need, they receive some kind of public assistance, and so they get to come for $50. $50 to come for a week of camp. One of those kids is a kid named Hayden. I happen to know him because I was his pastor a long time ago. But Hayden has been coming to camp since he was young. And then once he got to high school, he came to Director's Leadership Week, which is a week that I run. It's a summer camp program for youth that I run to teach them about leadership. And when he went back to the church after that week, he decided that he wanted to help run the children's church program, which he actually does now. He's still in high school. And then last year he came to staff and training because that's a 2-week program, because he wanted to learn about becoming a staff member because he wants to give back in the same way that he received. You know, when they come to camp and they experience these really cool young adults who follow Jesus and who've shown what it's like to have a life of faith, even when you're a teenager or in your 20s, these young people want to emulate that. They want to become that, and they want to do that for young people. And so I just heard last week that Hayden's going to apply to work at camp this year. And that's all because people have helped him to go to camp for just $50 every year. So here's my plug. After the service, if you would like to help support people like Hayden, if you want to help make it possible for us to provide camperships to everybody, and I'll tell you that we'll do it no matter what. Of that $106,000 we gave away, we actually only received $80,000 from donors. But that's okay, because we know that that's what God wants us to do. But if you want to help, if you want to be a part of that, ask me for an envelope. I'll give you one. You can fill it out. You can put money in it. You can take it home and pray about it and put a stamp on it and mail it back. But know that when you do that, it will make a difference for a child that you'll probably never meet. That difference will be life-changing. God will work in that and through that. I could go on, but I'm going to stop. Is there a clock around here? So you don't even give me a clock. It's right here? Is that it? Really? I got to turn around? Oh, I see. That's okay. I'm just kidding. I can use my phone because they allow me to keep my phone. So I'm going to read to you from Mark chapter 9, verses 2 through 8. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice. "This is my son, the beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So Jesus takes, I like to call them the big 3, Peter, James, and John. Jesus takes these 3 apostles to a place apart. He takes them up a mountain. He's in God's creation. And there they experience what we would call a mountaintop experience. Now, why would I bring this topic up? Well, one of the reasons is because that's what happens at camp. That's what happens on retreat. It's not just for kids. It's for people of all ages where when you get to a place apart, when you get outside of your normal life, you can have an experience that can change your life. You can have an experience that you'll never forget. Now, it can happen elsewhere as well. It can happen on a mission trip. It can happen in a Bible study, where you're so deep into the Word that the world around you kind of melts away. But it does happen at camp. And it happens a lot. The other reason I mentioned it is because even though Peter and James and John are really, they're icons in our thinking because of 2,000 years of Christian faith, they were just ordinary people. And And so mountaintop experiences are for anyone who want to follow Jesus. What was your last mountaintop experience? I want to share 3 things I think we learn from mountaintop experiences. The first is you are going to experience God firsthand. However that comes, through the Bible, through another person, through the Holy Spirit, through some mystical experience, you're going to experience God firsthand. Now, Peter and James and John, what happened to them is they go up on this mountain, and all of a sudden, Jesus is glorified. This is, what they're trying to communicate in the text is that he's glorified. The glory of God is shining through him. He's translucent. He is pure light. And not only that, to affirm that, Elijah and Moses are right there. Now, what you might not know is, in the Hebrew tradition, Elijah and Moses represented all of the scriptures. What they would call the law, Moses, right, brought down the 10 Commandments, and the prophets, Elijah, the one prophet who was taken up into heaven. So when they see that Elijah and Moses are there, it's an affirmation to Peter and James and John that Jesus represents everything that God has foretold in the scriptures. And if that's not enough, then they hear the voice of God. And the voice of God says, "This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him." Not many of us are going to have that kind of experience, where we literally see Jesus in all his glory, or we literally hear the voice of God. But a mountaintop experience is still life-changing, and it's still something that we know God is in. Excuse me. It can be as simple as a statement I heard at an outdoor chapel service at summer camp. It's a young man. I guess he was in high school, but he hadn't really grown yet, so he's kind of small for his age. And during those outdoor chapel services on Thursday evenings of camp, they share how they experienced God that week. And he stood up and he said, since I've been here, I realize that I matter too. That's a mountaintop experience. That's experiencing God firsthand. The second thing that we can learn from the Transfiguration, this mountaintop experience that Peter and James and John experienced, is that we can't stay. Whenever we have a great experience, we kind of want to bottle it, right? We want to try to hold on to it forever. And in fact, what Peter does here is Peter says, "Hey, this is great. Why don't we build 3 dwellings? One for you, and one for Elijah, and one for Moses, and let's just hang out here." Peter wants to stay there forever. He wants to settle down and just hang out with the glorified Jesus and Elijah and Moses forever. I don't blame him. But as soon as he says that, what happens? Elijah and Moses are gone. When you get up on that mountain and you experience God firsthand, the one thing you have to know is that God doesn't want you to stay. God wants you to go back into the valley of your life with all of its pain and challenge. Maybe 15 years ago, I was leading the Thursday night service. We call it the Galilean service. It's this powerful service where we sit in the outdoor chapel, which is right on the water. It's an amphitheater right on the Chester River. And we give a message. We invite kids to accept Jesus. And we ask them to consider, if they already know Jesus, to go deeper, or perhaps even to hear a call to ministry. And then after that, we give them a foil pan with a candle in it. And by this time it's dark. And And they get to light that candle, they each have a candle, and they get to put it on the river. And they watch these candles floating out into the darkness. It's spectacular. In fact, every time I go someplace and people here from Camp Atonement, they'll say, "Do you still do the candles?" Because we've been doing it since 1946. Little side note. We do retrieve foil pans. People always ask me. You don't just let them float out in the river and pull you in the river. We have two lifeguards who they wear life jackets, they get in a canoe, and they paddle out into the river in the dark, and all they have to do is shine a flashlight, and those foil pans just kind of pop, and they can collect them. Well, about 15 years ago, I was leading that service, and after the service, I always invite people to come and talk if they want to talk or pray. This is what your pastors have done for many years. They lead this service, and they help counsel young people. Well, that particular night, a young man named Alan came down. He was he had just completed 9th grade, and he was bawling. And he came up to me, and I said, "What's wrong, Alan?" He goes, "I don't want to leave." Now, we get that a lot. Just like Peter up on the mountain, right? People love camp. They don't want to leave. And so I said to him, "Yeah, I know. It's really great here at camp." He said, "No, you don't understand. I just finished 9th grade. It was my first year in a new city, in a new location, in a new school, and I don't have any friends. And kids pick on me all the time. I don't want to go back." It's one of those moments where the Holy Spirit gave me the words to say. Because I couldn't tell him he could stay. And I said, "The God you've experienced here will be with you wherever you go." You see, when you're up on the mountain and you experience God and you know you have to go back to a life that hurts, know that God is with you. Which leads to the third point, because this passage is called the pivot point in the book of Mark. And if you look at the book of Mark, the first 8 chapters are all about Jesus and his ministry. So he's healing, and he's teaching, and he's going from town to town. And at the end of chapter 8, we find that he reveals to his disciples that he is the Messiah, right? And that he's going to have to suffer and die and will be raised on the 3rd day again. And if you recall that passage, it's right before this. Peter says, no. You know, that wasn't Peter's idea of a Messiah. And what does Jesus say? He says, "Get thee behind me, Satan. And anybody who wants to be my follower must pick up their cross and follow me." See, he reveals what God's true intention is here. He's not going to be an earthly king. He's going to go down from the mountain. And if you look at the rest of the Mark, Jesus goes down from the mountain and he takes a path straight to Jerusalem where he rides in on a donkey and he ends up on a cross. You see, the message here is that when we go up on the mountain and we experience God, God is going to send us back down into the valley to give ourselves away. Just as Jesus did for us. Mountaintop experiences are not so we can feel good or so we can brag about how well we know God. Mountaintop experiences are there so that we know God so well that when we go back down in the valley, we're able to give our life away for the sake of the least and the last and the lost. The January after that summer where Alan came to me and said he didn't want to leave, I was at the youth rally in Ocean City. And we always set up our display on Friday evening in the exhibit hall because we're recruiting kids to come to camp, we're recruiting staff and the older youth. And I was actually at one end of the exhibit hall. There were 2 door entrances, and I saw Alan walk in the other entrance. Now, he was about 6 inches taller and really lanky, and you could tell he had a growth spurt. He was in 10th grade. And he was kind of making his way from aisle to aisle, and I kept my eye on him because, I wanted to see how he was doing. And when he finally came down my aisle, I stepped out and I said, "Hey, how are you?" He goes, "Hey, how are you? Do you remember me?" I go, "Yeah, I remember you. I just want to know, how are you doing?" He said, "I'm great!" He was all lanky, his arms and legs were going everywhere. So tell me about it. He goes, last year, this past fall, I came back from camp. And I had known that I had gone to the youth rally last year alone, by myself. But it was so amazing. The worship and the speakers, that I wanted to share that with my youth group in my new church. And so now I'm leading them here, so they can experience it too. The God that was with him on the mountain went with him in the valley. And not for his sake, but for the sake of others. So what about you? When's the last time you've gone up the mountain? When will you do it next? And most importantly, what will you do with it? Amen. And now go in peace. Go as people who seek to experience God firsthand. And then take that experience to give yourself away to a broken and hurting world. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. You guys think we
No, it's supposed to